Everyone online is talking about August 1st. There's just one problem. That's not actually the date that matters. Last year, tariffs added about $1,000 to the average American household's bills. This year, that number is dropping to $700. Sounds like good news, doesn't it? But there's a real legal deadline, one that's written into law, not floating around social media, and it's 10 days earlier than the date everyone's repeating. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which date to watch, why the number everyone's quoting is wrong, and what it actually means for the price tag on your next grocery run. Now, in 30 years of watching how these deadlines play out, through trade fights, currency scares, government shutdowns, I've learned one thing. The date everyone's shouting about online is almost never the date that actually matters. And that's exactly what's happening right now. There are two dates floating around, July 24th and August 1st, and people are treating them like they're the same thing. They're not. One of them is written into federal law with a clock that's been ticking since February. The other one isn't confirmed by anyone. Not the White House, not the Trade Representative's office, nobody. To be clear, I'm not here to tell you what to do with your money. I'm here to make sense of what's actually happening, so you can make your own calls with clear information instead of headlines. So let's start with the date that's actually written into law, because once you understand why July 24th matters, everything else about this story falls into place. Let's go back to February. The Supreme Court had just ruled, 6-3, that the president couldn't use the Emergency Powers Law, IEPA, to impose tariffs. That law had been the foundation for almost everything up to that point. And within hours, not days, hours, the administration reached for a different tool. Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974. Now, Section 122 is an old provision. It lets a president impose a temporary import surcharge, up to 15%, for a maximum of 150 days, to deal with what the law calls a fundamental international payments problem. The president invoked it on February 20th. It took effect 4 days later, on February 24th, at 10%. Here's the part that matters most. 150 days from February 24th lands on July 24th. And this is where I want you to picture something. Think of Section 122 like a countdown timer somebody set on purpose. Not a countdown anyone can pause, not one the president can quietly extend. It was built to expire. At 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time on July 24th, that timer hits zero, and by operation of law, the surcharge simply ceases to exist. Only Congress can change that. And as of right now, no bill to extend it has gone anywhere. I've watched Washington try to move a lot of deadlines in my career. This isn't one of them. So that's the real clock. Now, where does August 1st come from? This is where I want to be really precise with you, because I don't want to hand you a rumor and call it a fact. August 1st is what I'd call a ghost date. It's not haunting 2026. It's haunting us from 2025. Last year, August 1st actually was a real deadline. That's when a 35% tariff on Canada took effect, along with threats of 30% tariffs on the EU and Mexico. It was all over the news. But that was 2025. That tariff was struck down along with everything else the Supreme Court ruled on in February. It's gone. So when people repeat August 1st for this year, they're not lying to you. They're just remembering last year's headline and pasting it onto this year's calendar. I've checked the primary sources myself, the Trade Representative's office, the White House, the Federal Register. None of them have named August 1st, 2026 as anything. What we do know is that Ooster was targeting around July 20th to wrap up a separate investigation, one that'll matter a lot for what replaces this tariff. But a hard, confirmed date for consumers doesn't exist yet. One real countdown, one borrowed date from last year. Keep those two straight, and you already understand this story better than most of what's being posted online right now. Now, here's the twist most people miss. Even if this tariff legally disappears on July 24th, that doesn't mean prices go down. In fact, the administration is already building what comes next. And that's where the real dollar impact begins. Picture your household's tariff bill like a bucket with a hole in it. Right now, water's draining out through one specific hole. That's Section 122, the 10% surcharge. On July 24th, that hole gets patched, closed, done. But nobody's turning off the faucet, and what the administration is doing right now is drilling new holes lower down the bucket through two other legal authorities that don't expire and don't have a rate cap. Section 301, Section 232. In early June, the Trade Representative's Office made a determination. Every one of 60 countries they investigated was failing to adequately restrict forced labor goods. The proposal on the table, 12.5% tariffs on 46 of those countries, 10% on about 14 others. Add in Section 232, that's the metals authority, and you're looking at 50% on steel and aluminum, 25% on products substantially made from them, appliances, cars, canned goods even. Brazil already found out what this looks like in practice. A 25% tariff took effect there on July 22nd, the very first of these replacement actions to actually get finalized. So no, the bucket isn't getting any less full. It's just leaking from a different spot. Now let's talk about who actually pays for all of this, because this is the part that gets misrepresented the most. There's a comfortable idea floating around that foreign companies eat the cost of a tariff. The exporter pays, not you. The data says otherwise. The Kiel Institute looked at more than 25 million shipment records and found that foreign exporters absorbed only about 4% of the cost. 96% got passed straight through to American buyers. The New York Fed, looking at it independently, landed in the same neighborhood, around 90%. So when someone tells you the tariff bill goes to a factory overseas, ask them who's actually standing at the cash register. It's not them, it's us. And that brings us back to that number from the top of this video. The Tax Foundation's math. $1,000 in 2025, $700 projected for 2026. That $700 isn't a ceiling, it's closer to a floor. Because as Section 301 and 232 get finalized over the next few weeks, that number has real room to climb. If breakdowns like this, the kind that actually separate what's confirmed from what's just noise, are useful to you, subscribing means you'll catch the update the moment any of these numbers move. I track this stuff closely because it changes fast. Now, if you're running a business that imports goods, all of this is already sitting on your cost sheet, directly. But if you're just the person buying groceries or a new pair of shoes, you're probably asking a different question. What's actually going to cost more in my everyday life? Let's get specific. Let's start with the one you probably notice every single week, coffee. Ground roast coffee went from about $7.54 a pound last April to $9.72 this April. That's roughly a 29% jump, the highest price on record since anyone started tracking it, back in 1980. Now, here's where I owe you the full picture, not just the scary number. Coffee actually got tariff relief late last year. It was pulled out of the reciprocal tariff list back in November. So a good chunk of that price jump isn't tariffs at all. It's a genuine global bean shortage. The honest answer is, both things are happening at once, tangled together. Tariffs are one ingredient in that price, not the whole recipe. Shoes are a cleaner example of the tariff piece specifically. Footwear prices are up 5.2% as of May, the sharpest jump in nearly 4 years. Women's shoes specifically, up 6.2%. And that makes sense when you consider almost every shoe sold in this country is imported.
Electronics are getting hit from two directions at once. There's the tariff piece. Chinese-made electronics facing an effective rate north of 30%. But there's also a memory chip shortage, driven by demand from AI data centers, pushing computer prices up on its own.
You might see a laptop priced the same as last year, but with half the memory inside it. That's not a discount. That's the same cost, hidden. And then there's anything built from steel or aluminum, refrigerators, washing machines, ovens, cars. Those are carrying tariffs in the 25 to 50% range now, calculated on the full value of the product, not just the metal part. Here's the piece I really want you to hold on to. Think of this less like a light switch and more like a pipeline. A tariff gets turned on today, but the price doesn't hit the shelf tomorrow. It moves through the pipe, through supplier contracts, existing inventory, quarterly pricing negotiations. With coffee specifically, that pipeline runs about 9 months long because roasters lock in supply and pricing in advance. Which means even when Section 122 expires on July 24th, don't expect prices to drop the next morning. Retail analysts have been pretty blunt about this. Most of the increases already baked in are sticky. They're not coming back down just because one tariff expired. So let's bring this all the way back to where we started. The date to actually watch is July 24th. That's the one written into law, the one nobody can quietly extend. August 1st isn't a confirmed deadline for this year at all. It's last year's headline, echoing into a calendar where it doesn't belong.
And that $700 household number? That's not the ceiling. It's closer to the floor. Because the replacement tariffs, the ones built to outlast this one, are still being finalized as we speak. Watch for that number to move, not settle. A couple of things worth keeping an eye on, not acting on.
Uster's own announcements and the Tax Foundation's tracker. Both update as this evolves. And if you've heard anything about tariff refund checks landing in people's mailboxes, I'd treat that as a rumor, not a plan. Most economists who've looked at it consider it unlikely. That money, if any exists, tends to go to importers, not directly to you. I've watched enough of these cycles to know the headlines move faster than the facts. My job isn't to get you there first. It's to make sure you get there right. If this kind of breakdown helped you separate what's confirmed from what's just noise, hit subscribe. That's exactly what I track here every week. And if you want to understand where this fits into the bigger picture, because a hidden tax on your groceries is only one piece of what's been happening to the American paycheck this year, I'd start with our 5-part series in the description and end screen. It walks through why wages have quietly gone negative, what's really happening to your savings, and 4 specific moves that separate households who weather this from those who don't. No panic there either. Just the same thing you got here, the data, the context, and what it actually means for you.